I'm Saher. I'm a leather artist, a craftsman, and I've been working on leather for the last 27 years. I own a brand. I'm a founder and owner of a brand called Psybabas, and I have a store called Psybabas Bohemia in Bangalore, and I custom make leather products. Initially, I was a part of this whole corporate culture, and so at the same time, I had this hobby of creating things. Leather, it's very random. I started making small patches. Then I moved to making small pouches. From pouches, then I started making small bags. That's how it started off. And today, you give me anything, I spend some time and I can create that product. And it's a beautiful material to work with. It's natural, absolutely natural. And you can create absolutely anything out of leather. You think of it and you have an idea, you can materialize it. That's the beauty of leather. That's what I feel. And you don't really, when I started off, we didn't really have machines for literally I started working with machines only about 7-8 years back. So for literally about first 20 years, we worked only with hands. So, we hand stitch, I still hand cut them, glue is done with hand. You don't need massive machines, you don't need massive space to work with leather. We literally took about 10 years to figure out what kind of tools, and we didn't really have access to good tools in India. So we would do jugaad, we would make our own tools, we would use some other tool and, use it on leather thing. So it literally took us 10 years for us to figure out how to work, how to cut, how to do things, what kind of glue should we use. Because there's no internet, there was no other crafters we could, follow in. And that's what I tell a lot of people who come today. It's very easy for you to pick up any kind of art or craft. So you just have to go to YouTube, you type, and you have step-by-step things steady. Okay, you follow it. But for us, it literally took 10 years to figure out things. And now it's easy, I feel. When you have a bag design, okay, so you don't straight away start cutting the leather. You work that on a stencil paper. So we work on a paper or a cardboard. We create the design. So, the trial and error happens on the cardboard. So once we're sure, you put everything together, you feel like, okay, this is going to work. Only then we, move the stencil onto leather. And that's when a product is cut. So once the stencil is ready, I'm confident that, this can be transferred onto leather, then that's what happens. So I take the stencil, I mark the leather, I hand cut them. And so I start putting leather together to create a product. But the whole process is handmade. The cutting happens with handmade, the gluing happens with hand. Then you have a lot of time stitching with hand, riveting with hand. So literally 90% of the product is done by hand. Anywhere in the world, when you go, the only question you need to ask a leather vendor is this full grain leather? Full grain leather is the whole, the most natural way of retaining the hide. So when you see full grain leather, it's not uniform. The grain is not uniformed. So, and also, you do see tick marks, you see certain scars on the animal when it was alive. So everything is retained. So that's the strongest, toughest leather, But the problem with that is when you come to mass production, you can't really do with full grain leather because it's not uniformed. You have a lot of places very grainy. Some places there's no grain. So if you're making shoes, you need to match right and left. So if it is a larger company, they need to, because they upload their pictures online. So every single product needs to look identical. So they can't achieve that with full grain. So that's when they go for something called printed. They artificially print the grain on the leather. So that whole process is cheaper. But the grain is artificially embossed onto the hide. So if you see my products, they're not very uniformed. So if you look at the grain on the backs, you're not going to find the uniform grain throughout the front, back, or the flap, or sides of the bag. It's not going to be uniformed. So there's a lot of variation. That's full grain leather. And we prefer wet tan. So majority, literally I can say about over 90% of my leather is vegetable tan leather. Tanning is the process of converting a hide, like a skin, from an animal which is called wet blue. It starts off with the process of wet blue, turns into a hide, a leather product which you carry, a bag or anything. So that's the whole process of tanning. So there are different ways of tanning the leather. So I prefer the olden style, like vegetable tan leather. So the whole process of tanning is, it's from ancient times how they used to tan leather. So it's the tannins, the things they use to tan leather is tree bark, leaves, all natural products. And that's how the leather is tanned. So this is called vegetable tan leather. Wet tan leather, the beauty of it is the patina. So the kind of from the time you start using it, it starts aging well. So you have this lot of character, so the lighter shades will get darker and darker and darker, and you have this beautiful sheen on it. So that's the beauty of vegetable tan leather. So I have leathers from all over the world. I have leathers from Turkey, from Japan, Korea, from USA, things. So we have a lot of importers who get containers. So, and so I've been working with them for over 20 years. Generally, when we see Indian hides, they're way smaller. They're about 20, 22 square feet on an average. And they have a lot of holes. They have, scars, barbed wire injuries and things. That's all visible on the hide. And also the hide is really small, so you can't really make large products out of it, So that's the reason I prefer, imported hides than Indian hides. And so it's only cattle family. India, anything exotic is banned in India. So we have only from cattle family in India, killing animals to make leather products out of it. That's a very big misconception in Indian community. And I always tell them, it's not practical for somebody to go and kill an animal just for the hide. Hide is something, if you decide to not use hide, they dispose it. It's waste. So you rather use something which is coming from nature, which is going for a waste, than to create more synthetic, create more plastic. And, anything which is plastic is going to stay on earth at least for 100 years. These are like heirlooms, you pass it on for generations and generations. So I have seen certain bags which have been passed on 3 generations down, and they still are functional. So even when you decide to dispose the bag, it goes into a landfill. Literally about 2 months, 3 months down the line, it turns into soil. So there's no damage to the earth. People have to realize that, it's coming from a food industry. So there's still about 6.5 billion people on earth who eat non-veg. So we have to respect that. And what do you do with the byproducts? You make something out of it. So whatever you believe, whatever your belief system is, whether 10,000 years, 20,000 years, or 50,000 years back, man was there on earth. So you think about, there's always a balance. People, hunters and gatherers, they ate meat. They used the leather as clothing. They used the bones as weapons, or accessorize them with things. So there was a balance. There's always a waiting time for, good things. I have people who walk in and they say, I'm looking for a bag. Can you make for gifting, Can you, at the birthday is next week or the anniversary is next week, can you give me something in 4 days, 5 days? And I tell them, you'll have to wait for good things. You cannot just walk in and expect something in, 4, 5 days. There's a process to it. You spend a lot of time thinking, designing, making. So all good things in life, you'll have to wait for it. You have to wait for it. Anything which comes easy goes easy. Every single product which leaves my studio, I'm confident enough that this is the best. Once you have a whole factory set up where, people are working just to make money out of it. If I have employees and they're just working, not putting their heart and soul in a product. They just want something, okay, I do so many pieces and this is how much I get paid. Then there's no, emotional touch to the product. Right now, I have people, I've made products 20 years back and they still walk in and they're still so attached to the bag or anything. People walk in, they say, this is the only bag I carry, man. For 15 years, for 18 years, for 20 years, I've been carrying only one bag. And I feel so good about when I see my products being used for so long. That'll happen only when you put in, you genuinely work with your heart, and that's when, like, people can have that kind of attachment. For me, my work is meditation. uh, I really look forward to going to the studio every day and working. I really look forward genuinely. So it's really meditative. So you kind of like go into your cocoon where you start to enjoy the whole process. It's very meditative. I mean, the satisfaction you get when the final product is ready, it's something. It's a high. It's a high. It's something. The feeling I cannot express it. But every time there's a challenging order, and when I see the order, like, man, this is really difficult. I won't be able to do it. And I somehow manage, trial and error. There are times when I've, opened up the product 3 times, 4 times, and, I put together, and, finally the product is ready. And I feel like, wow, I achieved that. So I don't want to become very mechanical. Um I have this like soul connection with my work. So that's the beauty. That's the beauty of actual craft. You know, you have to enjoy thing. Your work doesn't have to feel like burden or a stress or like work by itself. Like